joining. Before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge country. I'd like to begin with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. I'm joined here today by my wonderful colleagues, Nicholas Pack and Siobhan Howard. All of us, I'm Nicole Godfrey, all of us are customer consultants for Siobhan and I in ANZ, and then Nick over there at Malaysia for today, but other areas as well. Alrighty, so today's session is an interactive one. So as Nicholas said earlier, please use the chat if you've got any questions during the session. We're happy to take questions during, but we also have a Q&A at the end as well too. So for anything that we can't answer during the session, we can answer at the end. It is being recorded as well, and we will also share the PowerPoint with you following this session too. So if for whatever reason we get disconnected or anything like that, stay connected. We'll jump back on as well too. So hopefully all things go well with technology. And last but not least, we'll have a short survey following this. So please tell us, any feedback, and be kind. This does go towards our end of year, how we go. So Nicholas will actually provide you with the survey at the end as well too. So if we just kick into the first slide, please, Nicholas. And so today we'll be covering Scopus overview, researcher profiles, author profiles, preprints and topics, how to collaborate internationally and locally, and how to create an ORCID ID. And this is all just to do with your profiles. But prior to that, I just wanted to do a quick recap on Scopus. So Scopus uniquely combines a comprehensive, expertly created abstract and citation database with enriched data and linked scholarly literature across a wide variety of disciplines. Scopus indexes content from more than 250,000 active titles and 7,000 publishers, all rigorously vetted and selected by an independent viewer board. Users get access to thousands of titles, millions of author profiles, and 1.7 billion of cited references. Next slide, please. Scopus is a very powerful search, profile, and metrics platform, APIs, and structured data to help progress, elevate, and reflect your institution's research activity. Documents that are not covered in Scopus, which is easier to do the not covered than covered, are book reviews, conference abstracts, and obituaries. It features more than 92 million items, 94,000 organisation profiles, 17 million researcher profiles, and 3.5 million awards, and 450 plus funders. It has this global, that's all right. It has the global reach, as I was saying earlier, of 7,000 plus publishers from 105 different countries, covering 40 different languages. Scopus has added over 195 million more cited references dating back to 1970. These this complement the database's existing records that date back to 1788. More cited references results in more extensive bibliography, bibliometric and historic trend analysis, more complete author profiles, and improved H-index measures for authors who published prior to 1996. Next slide, please. So how does Scopus help researchers? Helps by tracking your research performance to highlight your impact and/or your contributions. Identify and assess potential research collaborators and commercial partners. Identify and assess reviewers or experts in a certain field. Identify journals to submit manuscripts to. And keep up to date with the latest developments in your own field of research and other relevant related topics. Next slide, please. So when using Scopus, we went out to our librarians and researchers to get some feedback. And some top 5 tips we put together before you even sort of jump onto the platform. Make sure you bookmark it. So, you know, it's quick and easy to get to. Keep your login the same for Scopus as the rest of your other Elsevier logins. That way you don't have to remember another login, but it'll also get you straight through to your Elsevier account as well to unlock all the features specifically designed to support your research goals. Having an account enables you to personalize your experience. For example, setting alerts for searches, accessing and managing search history, save citations to folders, and you will also need an account if you wish to manage your author profile, which we'll talk about today. It's also good to use it to set alerts for your workflow to stay up to date. This way you don't have to log into the platform and you can help you identify emerging trends easily. The Research Office uses Scopus to review academic impact, so make sure your profile's up to date to stand out amongst your peers. And create an alert for yourself, and you'll always be notified every time your work gets a new citation. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk about researcher profiles a little bit more broadly before we hone in on Scopus author profiles in particular. So you can see here we've got a crowd of people. So how do you stand out from that crowd? How do you be visible and findable? When we talk about your research profile, we're in large part talking about your profile as it appears online. This is the place where people, whether they be academics, journalists, members of the public, will search for you and information about you and your research activities. And a quick search that we did on 2022 publications in Scopus revealed 3 million articles, 245,000 reviews, and over 14,000 books published in that year alone. That is just in Scopus. So there are many other outputs out there that, you know, were being published that year, last year. So the question is, how indeed do you stand out from the crowd? Next slide, please. To get the maximum benefit from the activity around identity and profiles, it's important that information you provide to these platforms on your publication is accurate and consistent. Information about you, your research, is generally gathered from details you provide your publications. To minimize any ambiguity, make sure you use a consistent form of your name. How your name is represented online, whether that be your institution profile, in your institution's repository, on the website, on your ORCID, may all vary from platform to platform. This could be due to co-author writing your name in a particular way, or a particular journal having its own conventions about how names are written. Name changes, use of initials or middle names, all etc. So the one consistent thing here is be consistent. You can see here in the example of 9 different ways Sharon Lind is online. And the one that Sharon actually wants to go by is Lynn, Sharon. So just making sure that she's constantly checking back in and making sure that things are published in that format is really imperative. So the other part of a name is the affiliation. So author affiliation is an organization where the author works, studies, or where the most of the authored work or study has been performed. While it is understandable that an author can be affiliated with 1, 2, or 3 institutions at some time, authors can sometimes be up to 6 institutions, if not more, at the same time. Hence the term octo-affiliation. And I love this sort of image of, you know, how many things are out there around the affiliations and, you know, how many different formats can actually come as a result of that. So if you think not just the 8, but beyond that as well, it's just snowballs. So once again, consistency here is key. And we'll go into this a little bit more on the impact of that in Scopus as well, and how we sort of fix these issues if you do find inconsistencies within your name. So if you do, just on a generic, on other platforms, consult with your institution or with the authorship and the publication policy to ensure that you're following the guidelines. Correct affiliation is important for your institution as well for you. So include your affiliation on your ORCID ID and other research platforms such as Scopus. So make sure it's up to date and visible. Next slide, please. Okay, I love this principle. Enter once, reuse often. So once again, really embedding that consistency. So this means once you've created and populated your ORCID ID, for example, and managed your Scopus profile, you can enable connections between the two systems. So information exchange is automated. Using your identifiers in your scholarly activity can be just as easy as including your submitted manuscripts, applying for funding, accept peer review assignments, renew professional memberships, create your poster presentations, and communicate with colleagues. And you can see here just on the slide itself where your IDs can be used, and your Scopus IDs and your DOIs are all applicable to those different types of channels as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so getting into author profiles and why we're all here and excited today. So author profiles include both author and affiliation profiles. Scopus delivers a comprehensive view on the world of research. So Scopus includes 17 million author profiles and 70,000 affiliated profiles. Scopus is the only database that implements algorithmic and systematic author disambiguation. Sorry, I cannot pronounce that for the life of me, with high accuracy and to create and maintain precise and complete profiles. Authors can request changes using the author feedback wizard, and we'll go through that a little bit later today, further down in this session. So next slide, please. So why is this all important? So you want to demonstrate your reputation and the impact of your outputs. So it helps to ensure authors of published research activity is visible to other researchers, libraries, and research leaders all in one place. You want to attract other researchers for networking and collaboration, outputs, topics, and awards. You want to influence information on promotions and tenure and personal CVs. So Scopus can be viewed by anyone without a subscription. So that is a bit of the beauty of that. But if you're going to update your author profile, you need to be logged in. The author profile is recognised as an impartial source of relevant information from a global trusted source, and add context and breadth to your grant application. Okay, so as I said, today we're going to focus on the author profile itself. So I'll be giving an example of this and just understanding exactly what the author profile is. So it's a unique record of research and publication activities. The details come from peer-reviewed articles and other publications that are indexed in Scopus. The information in a profile includes the author's name, affiliation, subject areas, publications, citations, and co-authors. The profiles do not cover editorialship, managerial or executive roles, or teaching positions. Each Scopus author profile is automatically generated using the dedicated machine algorithm that extracts metadata directly from documents indexed in Scopus. And I think I really want to point that out, that it's not us generating that, it is automatically generated using that dedicated machine algorithm. The metadata is publicly visible information that the author supplies when they submit the documents for publication. So once again, it's on the author to make sure that your name is right and that you're checking in with the author at the time before it even goes through to Scopus itself. The process links an author's name with the published document that they authored, provided those documents are indexed in Scopus. It then organises the publicly visible information, name, affiliation, subject, etc., in a way for other researchers, librarians, and research leaders as the Scopus identifier. Next slide, please. I love this visual. Our profiles are built from the bottom up. So based on Scopus documents, as I've just gone through, it's automatically generated. An author profile is a cluster of all author instances belonging to the same researcher. Our institution profile is built in the same way. Next slide, please. So here, just reiterating almost what we went on, what I was talking about with the Sharon Lind example, but here we've got even more versions of, the same name. Smith here in ANZ is a very common name as well too. So even just giving an initial doesn't necessarily mean you're going to avoid any ambiguity. So if you run a couple of searches on Scopus to exemplify the challenge that we're faced with this. So if we're looking for a researcher, oh, sorry, if we can go to the next slide, please. So author disambiguation. If we're looking for the researcher, Oliver Burnett, 30 results come up. If we're looking for A. Williams, that was how we identified that particular author, but over 60,000 results came up for that. So even just having, the A, and sometimes even having a full stop as well can make it really ambiguous as well. And also, if there was a C. Chan you were trying to find, you'd find more than 250,000 results for that. So without the technology that group papers and identifiers together by an author, you'd need a lot of creativity to run a search to identify all the research by a specific author and just the research by this author without picking up research of somebody else. Next slide, please. Okay, so often I get asked a lot of questions, and these are sort of the few key ones that come out. And should I list non-scientific publications? Now, this is interesting because you can't actually, as I was saying earlier, it's not manually done. So you can't add publication manually into Scopus profiles. Scopus differ from the profile like an ORCID, where I suggest that's where you add this information to, because Scopus profiles are created and updated by publications entered into Scopus. Only publications that are indexed in Scopus will be listed also on the Scopus author profile. How do I merge my profiles with a different affiliation? Now, that's a great question, and we'll actually go into this a little bit later in this presentation, but there are actually wizards to assist with this as well. So also with name change, and your library can assist with these things as well, so they can do things on your behalf. What is the best way for a researcher to request corrections to their author profiles? As I've just been through, best to jump on the wizard or contact your library as well. And why does Scopus keep creating new author profiles for me? And this is the one that just brings me back exactly to the start. If you haven't kept your name consistent, if you're not updating your profiles, if you're not making sure that the affiliations are correct, this is why it will just keep happening if there are any if there's any ambiguity around your name. So if you take nothing else from this today, make sure that consistency is the key and use it often.
Bear with me while I come off of mute. Hello, everybody. My name is Siobhan Howard. I am the customer consultant for research intelligence here in Australia and New Zealand, which means that I mainly focus on research analytics products like Servellen and Pure. However, Scopus as our main data source very much falls into our kind of category of work as well. So very pleased to be joining us today. I will be kind of going through the basis for how we can start engaging with our author profiles. We will be digging into preprints and how that gets pulled into author profiles, as well as topics and how those are formulated. So next slide, please, Nick. All right, so to kick us off with, this is actually a screen grab directly from Scopus to start to give you an idea of how you can be pulling through authors of interest. There are three main ways that you can find an author within Scopus. The first is to actually build out a bit of an advanced query string on Scopus document search. So if I wanted to go in and I could use the document search to highlight a certain area, for example, COVID-19, I can then actually add another search parameter to that original search for just COVID-19 documents by specifically trying to find an author who is publishing within that topic domain. You'll see here by the addition of Boolean term and in this instance, I'm able to also search an author with a specific name, Fauci in this example. So that's your first way that you can start pulling through authors within their author profiles on Scopus. The second way that you can find authors is actually clicking right on into the authors subtab, which allows you to search directly amongst all of the profiles. And you'll notice there we've got a drop-down menu where you can choose to search directly for an author's name just by putting in their last and then their first name. Again, in this instance, you can go ahead and actually put in the initial or full name and kind of work around some of those naming conventions there. But that will give you you the same kind of search term results, now specifically looking for just author type information. The third way is to actually still within that same authors subtab, you'll notice now that rather than search using their naming conventions, we are searching directly with the use of an ORCID identifier. And this is, again, best data quality practice is ensuring that Scopus author profiles have a linked ORCID ID. However, if they don't, you obviously won't be able to search for their ORCID and kind of have the profile getting pulled through. So if you are at an institution that has really done this kind of data quality work and managed ORCID maintenance for profiles, this can be a really easy way to quickly find and search for people. Otherwise, I would suggest using the naming convention as kind of the easiest and quickest way to find people. But those are the three main ways that you can go about trying to find an individual on Scopus and their author profile. And when you actually do those searches, you will be given a kind of variation of what's currently on screen, where you will be able to see all of the instances that are coming up as a match for your search, which can be a really useful place to start getting an idea of how many different Scopus author profiles could exist in relation to a single search term. So not so much in this example, but it's very common. You might search for an individual and notice in your search results that they actually have 3 or 4 profiles that have been created for them. And this can be a really good indicator of, okay, we need to actually merge and take care of our profiles a little bit better. But as you can see, at a very high level, we're able to start getting an idea of their document count, their H index, their affiliation, as well as city and territory, all of which we can kind of expand a little bit further by actually clicking into any one of these search results, which is then going to directly bring us into their author profile. So now on screen, we're actually getting an idea of what the Scopus author profile looks like and what information it houses just in the kind of quick capture, picture up above, a very high level. So immediately we're able to see the affiliation of the individual directly underneath the name. We can see that this one is University Malaya. Next to that, you are able to see the Scopus author profile ID. So just where it says SC, that is the ID type for Scopus. And if the author has gone ahead and integrated their ORCID, you will be able to see that identifier, or Scopus will prompt the author to go ahead and connect their ORCID ID from there. Just underneath that, you'll be able to start seeing that kind of high level output and metric information. So we can, of course, see citations and output over time, document count, as well as getting into a bit of information around citation trends and, publishing history. All of this, of course, you can kind of break into a little bit more. It all kind of hyperlinks out so you can actually see exactly what citation and document coverage it is getting. But quite a useful one from this perspective as well is actually the addition of quick metrics. So you have, of course, H-index citation, as we discovered, but also those topics on the right-hand side of our kind of year-by-year graph. You are able to start seeing the 3 most common topic areas that this author is publishing in. Again, for that quick highlight of where this author is currently working in. We're going to break down into each of those tabs in quite a bit more depth. What we were just looking at was that very high picture of, a high level picture of what this author is about. But at the bottom of this picture and on the next slide, you can actually see the author profile houses many different tabs for, different areas of interest related to that author. So when we go on into our next slide, we'll be able to click into our first area, which is the author metrics tab. Of course, previously there's just documents and you were able to kind of dig into all of the documents that this author is housing. But recently we have added in a new tab for author metrics to start giving you an idea of how this individual is performing across different strategic analytical areas. Again, to give you insight into what the impact of their work is making beyond just kind of document representation itself. So at a high level, and we'll dig into this a little bit more in depth, but these author metrics that are within Scopus, we are looking at collaboration, specifically international and academic to corporate collaboration. We are also looking at some percentiles. So you're able to start looking at the documents in top citation percentiles, as well as then in the top 25% of journals by your specific journal metric of choice. In this instance, it is pulling through site score, but you would also be able to choose across SNP and SJR journal metrics as well. And if you go on into the next slide, we'll be able to zoom into this picture a little bit more and start to break down what some of these metrics mean. Now, I will quickly call out, because I know some of you on this call also are Servellen customers, and when we're kind of talking about author metrics, there's a bit of a difference in terms of coverage of what we can engage with in Scopus versus what you will probably be familiar with within Servellen. So just to call out, they are the exact same metrics, and you will be seeing the same numbers represented in both. But this is what we kind of have at our disposal within the Scopus in regards to author metrics. So as mentioned, that international collaboration metric is a really critical piece actually in trying to identify authors that you might want to collaborate within your own circle as a researcher, or strategically, if you're in partnership engagement across your university, it can be really useful to be able to drill into how much this author is naturally and kind of already strategically inclined toward engaging with other regions. I will speak for Australia and New Zealand and kind of some of our industry approaches, that international collaboration is one of the most strategic pieces that our researchers are trying to align with in terms of the kind of success rate that it adds for grant applications. So creating more collaborative groups, not just within your institution, not just within your region, but really taking advantage of cross-pollination and that knowledge exchange that research really is good at, and being able to actually witness that in a percentage and drill into it a little bit further in Servellen is a really worthwhile strategy to align to when trying to find collaborators. Similarly, we also pull through that academic to corporate collaboration. Now, you'll notice this is actually a very good example. This profile that's been pulled through, it's a very small number. And that is because the academic to corporate collaboration, it is relying on the bylining behavior representing that corporate entity in Scopus in a certain way. So I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind, that unless this corporate entity is sitting within Scopus, it's not going to get pulled through by this metric as, this is an instance of collaboration between an academic and a corporate entity. And so again, whenever we are working with metrics across research intelligence, it's really important to include your own qualitative expertise in addition to this number. Because when we look at this, we can say, okay, for this author, 0.4% of their interaction has that kind of corporate partnership element, which is really useful for showcasing research commercialization or that kind of innovation pathway that research can kickstart, but include it with your own qualitative knowledge of what that author is doing in terms of industry type partnerships. Now, the next two main metrics that we have within this author metrics panel are the documents within top citation percentiles. So based on the kind of 4 different quartiles, you are able to start seeing, an idea of their total documents, how many of them are kind of reaching that threshold of being within the top 25% most cited documents worldwide, which can be a really useful indicator of, not just a publishing strategy, but also performance, and are they kind of getting into those more notable type journals. The next percentile that you have allows you a little bit more control over the percentile, really, and how you would like to be classifying what success looks like by giving you control over what metrics you are kind of scoring it by. So in this instance, you're able to pull in different journal metrics. In this example, site score, you could also be pulling in your SNP or your SJR to kind of categorize those different quartiles into what you deem as success and how you would like to be looking at publishing success. And again, kind of looking at that top 25% per that metric across all of their documents. So this is kind of where we're able to look into within author metrics. And you'll notice for all of these, it kind of encourages you to analyze author in Servellen for a little bit more detail. So if you do have access to Servellen, it can be a really good way to engage directly and kind of have that interoperability between the author profile and then into Servellen, where you can get really in depth with the numbers. Next slide, please, Nick. So a great and somewhat recent feature that Scopus has pulled out is the addition of being able to start looking into the author position and how frequently a certain author within their Scopus author profile is appearing within the different positionings of where an author comes out on a paper. And this can be a really useful way to get an idea of career stage and to start to look into, mentorship within what all of those different positions within an author stacking normally tends to convey. So obviously first author and kind of the principal investigator, what that means in comparison to being the last author, and maybe kind of having that more mentorship type role. Being able to extract that information a little bit more has been a really exciting addition. Again, I think it's come back in the past 4 months or so, but it's directly within the Scopus author profile. And it really is helping you identify what are the responsibilities of that individual and how are they kind of convening within their own research network. So a really exciting one that's recently been pulled through. And I think whenever we're starting to look at these kind of indicators or pull out certain pieces of metric metadata information, it's again really important to always keep in mind what the responsible use of metrics looks like within these contexts, which is to do a little bit of further digging than just looking at a flash number on the screen. I really encourage you to be looking into the author position details, familiarizing yourself with the support documents that help you not just completely understand what these numbers are representing in terms of the kind of relevance, importance across them, but also more broadly, how you can make sense of this within a context, because we at Elsevier really strongly encourage whenever you are using our metrics to, of course, be using it within that knowledge of the kind of qualitative perspective, your own expertise of that area as well, but then also using multiple metrics. And so never just relying, for example, on this first author type perspective as the only sign of success. If there's, a lot of first author, they must be really good, but actually looking at all of their author metrics to get a really comprehensive idea of what their performance looks like across bibliometrics. Next slide, please, Nick. Oh, this one I'm going to leave to you, actually. Preprints is not so much my area of expertise.
No worries. I think that we're very lucky that we have had the opportunity to talk about preprints the last time around. And this time I want to go more into depth to explain and to expound about how preprints are being articulated and showcased a little bit better. So some of you may probably know of this. Some of you may be actively be involved in looking for preprints. And if you are, that's great, because we understand that sometimes it's not so straightforward. Sometimes you want to find collaborators who are at the cutting edge of their own research domain. Sometimes by leveraging on preprints, you'll be able to understand information and research that's coming out as soon as possible. Through preprints, you can also get a more comprehensive overview. You're able to understand how funding agencies are monitoring progress, and this also widen opportunity for comments with regards to your research. We've been introducing preprints in sequences, right? In phase 1, that was in Q4 of 2020, we brought in about 0.6 million preprints from arXiv, bioRxiv, and chemarXiv, and we have been enriching over 1 million author profiles. The second phase in 2021, we got in approximately about 250,000 of preprints in SSRN, which will increase the number of enriched profiles to 1.4 million. One of the key things I want to highlight and emphasize here is that when preprints are added to Scopus, they are completely separated from the curated published content. So the reason why this is the case is because we want to showcase preprints as a separate component where you're able to understand what an author is doing with regards to the research, but because it is in a preprint format, we don't share this information or the citations within the author profile itself. We'll go into more details as we go on. So some of you may be asking, what exactly are preprints? Essentially, they are a version of a scholarly paper which precedes publication in a peer-reviewed journal, and they act as an early indicator of research. So this popularity is growing, and particularly since and especially for the COVID-19 situation, because this is a great opportunity to share research quickly, openly, and early, and sometimes up to approximately about 250 days before the final paper is published. Many of you here who have been doing research for a long time and were around when COVID-19 happened knew that it was very urgent and important for us to be able to have access to research to find out more exactly about what COVID-19 was during that particular period of time. Of course, this doesn't just only extend to COVID-19, but also to more. And I think that it's a great thing that we were able to tide through COVID-19 because we all shared research very openly and clearly so that other researchers were able to leverage on this to conduct and to grow their own research. Preprints reside on preprint servers, which are online repositories, and this covers a set of subject domains and allow for dissemination so that people can lay claim to an idea, sometimes can collect feedback prior to the submission as well. One very big difference about preprints and articles in press are that preprints are not peer-reviewed and they are not accepted for publication within a journal. So that's just some information about those of you who are wondering and see preprints around, but you're not so clear about what exactly they entail. Then the other question boils down to, if preprints are not peer-reviewed, why should they be introduced into author profiles? That would be a very valid question. And one of the key things is that as Scopus data is used as an evaluation and decision support tool, we see the need to deliver more improved insights in ways that are easy to understand and to access. Sometimes preprints, being an early indicator of research, will provide a more detailed view of researchers and what scholarly work that they are creating over the course of their careers. They also have very strong, clear use cases, right? Which are very fundamental to how Scopus wants to help researchers. So one would be staying up to date, where people will be able to get access to new ideas. They can sometimes get access to a specific paper or an author's work quickly. Sometimes you'll be able to showcase your new ideas or have new ideas to be shown to the rest of the world, which would also boost the research impact. You can sometimes find collaborators and funders for early ideas. You'll be able to conduct systematic literature reviews. And sometimes you'll be able to allow funding agencies to access funding applications to monitor project progress, as well as to demonstrate impact through early forms of scholarly output. Sometimes academic leaders and research support officers would be able to get a very comprehensive picture of their institution's output and its impact through early indicators of research. So we want to introduce preprints into Scopus author profiles because not only are we looking to expand the scope of a research topic, but also its recency. We want to make sure that early research, good research, is able to be shared globally, worldwide, so that in this case, there's a whole myriad of use cases which can be tapped into. So some of you probably would have seen this within the Scopus profile panel that Servellen was talking about earlier. You can see that within the Scopus author profile, we have a whole list of panels that you can go into. Preprints is one of the new panels that's been incorporated. They're only available for authors that have a peer-reviewed publication history in Scopus, right? So not just only from one article, but more. Preprints are also very clearly separated from the curated published content. This is something that we really want to highlight because it's very different to have preprint articles as well as Scopus indexed articles. I mentioned earlier that citations to and from the preprints nor links with the final version of the article are captured, and metrics on Scopus such as publications and citation counts, H-index, and the others would not include preprint content. I think that's something which we really want to emphasize as well. You can find that preprints are incorporated into Scopus author profiles, right? And upon how you can do it is to conduct a document search. And if you land on the search results page, users can find preprints under a new content tab labeled preprints, which you can find over here. You can search within the results, the year, the author name, the subject area, the content repository, affiliation, country, territory, as well as language. You'll be able to see some of this preprints itself. You can access the preprint itself via at the repository or view it at the PDF if you have access to it. And authors will have links to preprint authors with more than one peer-reviewed published article. You can also sort this by the date and the relevance in terms of the preprint itself, right? So all these tabs really gives you functionality and access to new content that you probably would not have been able to see prior. The servers that we work with, preprint servers selected for Scopus, including the main preprint servers in the areas of physical sciences, which would be archive and chem archive, For biomedical sciences, which is bioarchive and medical archive, social sciences, which is SSRN, engineering, computer science, and related technology will be tech archive, and multidisciplinary areas such as research squares. These are some of the preprint servers that we're working with, and I think as of June this year itself, this is a total number of preprints that we have built into Scopus itself. So back to you, Siobhan, to talk about grants.
Well, I might actually take a quick pause because we've got two questions that have come through the chat that are specific to preprints. So I thought it would be a good time to ask you this, Nick. The first one from Daniel Bengano, hope I pronounced that okay. Do the preprint article stats transition to official author curated documents once the material is published in a journal?
So they don't transition. I would say that what happens is that when the article is indexed within Scopus itself or published journal, that would and is then indexed within Scopus itself, the data that we'll be pulling into Scopus in terms of citations, in terms of author representation data, will be coming from the Scopus index citation and document itself. So we try not to pull it between because there are two different types of medium entirely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. And I think that actually kind of leads into the second question that's there as well, provides a bit of context to Yan Lee's question. So preprints don't need a journal then?
I would say that how we are pulling the preprints from would actually come from this following service itself. But at the end of the day, it's not that we are promoting preprints over articles, right? We're trying to promote them holistically speaking, so as to, well, say, at the end of the day, it's about getting good quality research out for early observation. So it depends. I would say that at the end of the day, the preprint servers are also extracting a lot of content from journal articles. So I would say that the best approach to do it is that if you have a good quality research, try your best and submit it for publication within an index journal itself. Then the rest does its job automatically, so as to speak, right? Because the journals would also be submitting its articles to preprint servers, so on and forth. So I would say that the entire cycle and process is really more like a virtuous process. Try to make sure that you're still writing good quality research. Try to make sure that your research is published and indexed within a top quality journal. And then the quality of your research will still be made more public and made seen as well. So I think that would be my approach with regards to that.
It's a very popular topic, it looks like. You've got another question that's pulled through. Can a preprint paper be cited in an article?
You could, I think you could definitely cite this preprint, but you need to probably attribute it accordingly as well. Yeah, the whole point of having preprints is for you to have early information in terms of the research. But then again, you have to understand that when it comes to preprints, you run the risk of the preprint not being peer reviewed just yet, right? So I would say that try not to base any formulative or conclusive decisions based on that, because you want to use this as information for, but you don't want to use and to build a research exclusively around non-peer reviewed information, right? Because at the end of the day, it's very people in their eagerness to produce research within a topic may sometimes not get it 100% accurate, right? So it's very important that you still refer to the final peer review article at the end of the day.
Very good advice. Thank you, Nick. We have a bit of an unrelated question from Mohammed, I can see in the Q&A. What is the systematic literature review? Bit of a side question.
So the systematic literature reviews is a question that comes up very often. I would say that it comes up primarily in the area of medical sciences when people need to write a paper with regards to, well, a very systematic review with regards to it. So I would say that it's a bit different from what we're talking about actually, but what I would advise you to do is that, well, normally people would come across the term systematic literature review primarily when they are working on PubMed. That's one very common approach. I would say that within Scopus itself, you can somewhat do it. The search permutations will be a bit different, right? I think that's where you missed out on our previous sessions, but don't worry, we have recordings on how you can use Boolean operators to conduct searches with regards to that. It's a bit less straightforward within Scopus. We have been speaking and we have highlighted this to our product team multiple times because we know that how important it is to do an SRR within Scopus. But unfortunately, we don't have the exact same format yet as PubMed. But through Boolean operators and by conducting advanced search on Scopus itself, you can somewhat conduct a systematic literature review in a way. Yeah, so it's a yes and no answer, but we can't give everyone what they want, but we try. We're listening and we try. And I mean, that's also one way that we have managed to build preprints into Scopus, because we realized that there is actually a huge demand for it. And we wanted to find out how can we build it into Scopus without compromising on what Nicole and Siobhan said earlier about data quality, because it's very important to us.
Well, thanks, Nick. I think that was very comprehensive. Perhaps I could see we've got one more that's also come through from Peter Wang. This seems like a bit more of a unique situation, so I won't ask it publicly, but I would strongly recommend to reach out to us, our team, when you get this presentation after today. On the front slide are all of our email addresses, so please send through that to one of us, depending on what region you are from, and we can make sure we chase this up for you.
Can I just add something to that, Siobhan? It's actually just about merging profiles and so forth. Can you repeat, Peter, did you actually use the wizard? Because that's the preference as opposed to emailing it.
Which would probably also be a good one when we're about to cover
wizards. That's right. Wizard. So I think if we can, hold off and maybe come back to that, it might actually make a lot more sense that, sometimes emailing support, whilst that's not great from a customer perspective, the preference would be using the wizard. Okay, but no success.
Don't worry, Peter.
All right.
We will address this very shortly. Yeah. Sorry, Nicole, you were saying?
All right, let's progress. We were just about to speak about what is actually a bit of a beta introduction into our APAC region around the inclusion of awarded grants information into the Scopus author profile. So as a really quick caveat, this is in beta. It's just been introduced into our region literally this month. And so as a result, some of the data sources are still kind of pulling through for APAC region. This was first launched in North America, and as a result, it is a very robust system already for our customers and institutions over there. So just a quick caveat, but we are going to see this built more and more out. You will, of course, notice it when you go into the Scopus author profile. So we wanted to include a bit of perhaps roadmap, getting everybody excited about what's to come next for our Scopus customers. So really, the value of bringing through this awarded grants information is that you can start to get an idea of how an author or a specific topic area is starting to engage with the different funding bodies. As you can see in the picture on the right-hand side, when you actually click into the awarded grants tab, you're able to, at a high level, see all of the different research grants that author is currently connected to. And when you actually click into it to see a little bit further information, you can not only see the actual funder that is providing that amount of money which has been allocated, but also the start date for their project, all of the awardees that are associated, again, due to that kind of linking with the author profile, the author positioning for that individual. And then, of course, the actual funding description and the information that went forward to get them that grant allocation. So it is a really fantastic way, again, to start seeing some of that information in relation to how publication type information relates to awarded grants and that kind of analysis of relation between the two. But really important call out is that this information is kept quite separately to the publication level data. It is, within the profile specific to the authors, it is just going to be that awarded grants information, not kind of being able to link through to any of the publication. It's quite a separation between the two. And again, that caveat being, it is really robust right now for our US Scopus base, and we are going to see this built out more and more. I'm not really sure all of APAC, but I know within Australia and New Zealand right now, we have the NHMRC and their awarded grants pulling through. Next, of course, looking into the ARC and kind of going from there. Next slide, please. So a really good topic, and one that I can see already the chat is interested in, which is to do with affiliation history. How does this get matched to our authors, which is a really critical piece of the Scopus profile puzzle, because it kind of links not just your author to their affiliation, but is a kind of immediately place to look when it comes to trying to understand data quality at an author level. So when we are on a Scopus author profile, immediately underneath the name of that individual, where you would see all of their different identifiers, you are able to click into their affiliation. So for this guy, Dominique, this individual, sorry, you know, we can actually click into Université de Lyon-Court, and popping into that will allow you to see their entire affiliation history. And again, this is really important, not just in being able to kind of grasp that linking information between the document to the author and then to that institution that they are publishing through, but it kind of helps you to map and historically follow an individual and understand their career history, all of the different places that they have published at. Now, something that is really important to keep in mind when we are discussing affiliation history, and it might be on the next slide, I'm not sure, but it's that the most recently published kind of affiliation is going to then map to what the author's affiliation is linking to. So this can be really important to keep in mind if you have dual affiliation in some circumstances, or you know, you're in the middle of a career change and you've just kind of landed in a new institution, but perhaps you haven't actively published with them yet. You would not kind of appear with that new institution's affiliation unless you published to them. You would kind of remain in your previous hierarchy until you kind of have that new published to prove and to kind of showcase to Scopus, hey, we've actually moved our location as a researcher. So again, a really kind of critical piece to keep in mind, and again, know that you can go in there and start to kind of look across the history of that hierarchy really quite easily within the profile. Next slide, please. So actually into topics next, but that's fine because I covered off what we needed to, which was the publication history. So earlier on, when we were kind of going through what is that high level perspective on a Scopus author profile page, their kind of, you know, top performance metrics, so to speak, I briefly touched on the topics and those kind of most contributed topics. We actually have an entire tab dedicated to this type of understanding of an author, which is really to provide you with some more insight into what area of research they are engaging in based on their publishing output. So a topic at a very high level kind of explanation is a collection of documents with a common focused intellectual interest. They are entirely based off of the clustering of citation network across different Scopus content. And as a result, it's in flux. It's kind of constantly a changing, movable piece based on what Scopus is getting in terms of content coverage across all the different publishing outputs. So it can be a really interesting way to start engaging with and understanding an author's outputs that is separate to subject classification. You know, you're no longer kind of put into ASJC or in our region FOR codes. You can actually start to map the really specific niche, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary qualities of a researcher outside of subject classification is a huge benefit of engaging with topics. And again, being able to drill into not just their kind of top three, which is in that summary up at the top of your Scopus author profile, and can start to give you that indication of where their research is, but actually drilling into all of their topics output, all of the different areas that their research has kind of provided coverage across, which I will say in terms of doing a kind of topic analysis for a researcher is a really good way of starting to pull across just how multidisciplinary a researcher can be. I think oftentimes we put researchers into certain classification criteria and it can forget some of the other areas and cross aggregated information that happens across different disciplines. So topics is really aiming to provide you into that. And you'll see for the kind of more in-depth view, as well as that kind of quick summary of the top three, you can actually click into the exact documents that are being pulled through to that topic area to see how this individual is engaging with the topic, as well the field-weighted citation impact for their representation within that topic, and then doing analysis on the topic itself. So you can get quite in depth with this kind of analysis. And I will say again, the real kind of benefit of this for customers who kind of work across research intelligence is that this topic as an idea is a really common thread within SciVal. It's a really strategic perspective to be able to start understanding that publication movement that happens in research. And we kind of look at it as You know, if you've got a lot of movement within one space of research within one of these topics, you can bet that there's going to be more funding within that area, as well as more kind of potential impact that your research can make. So leaning into topics that are very popular and have high kind of bibliometrics can be just a solid way for a researcher to start understanding what funding opportunities might exist within a certain domain. So yeah, a bit of a high level that you can start to interact with within Scopus. Next slide, please.
So something that you can do on Scopus itself is that you can often keep track of an author that you're particularly interested in. So for instance, like Nicole and Siobhan have talked about author profiles. One of the key things which I would like to also share with you is that within the author profiles, you can also select to set an alert for an author that you are interested in, or whose early career work in preprints engage you, or whose body of work in a particular topics has interested you. So sometimes when you find any particular author, right, what you can do is that you can create an alert so that you can see that whether or not there is a document alert for a new or document which is published or indexed within Scopus. You can send the name of the alert and send it to yourself on a frequency, right? So you can get a notification when new documents arrives or appears in Scopus for an author that you're following, or for even your own author profile, right? So that you know what's happening. You can also find and track accordingly when the work has received new citations. So if you feel that you want to keep track of your own publication and how well it's trending and performing on Scopus, you can also necessarily set your own alert so that you're aware of what's trending on as well. But of course, what one of you was also asking earlier, is this a one-time thing or is it for free? I would say, now that most of you, bear in mind that most of you are on this session, you probably have access to Scopus, and you can access Scopus for free through your institutions. I would encourage all of you to actually create a Scopus profile, right? So it's very different from an author profile. I would say it's a Scopus user profile, so that what you can do is that you can log in, you can save all of this to your own list, and it's useful to keep tabs on specific authors for analysis. Having the advantage of a user profile also allows you to search for it, save your searches to make your entire process searching for authors more convenient as well. And there are many ways to enter this particular work stream. You can go from this author results page. You can access this from via the author's details page. You can go to the co-author tab, which is something that we'll talk about in just a bit, and via potential author matches itself. So there are many multitudes of ways to access this particular work stream. I highly encourage you to do so. There is no one fixed way that you can access content, details, and authors, right? We want to make the entire process as seamless as possible, as organic as possible as well. When you want to access your list, it's very straightforward. Simply go towards the user profile on the top right corner, select the drop-down menu, and select Save List, right? And one of the beautiful thing about having all this list together is that you can group them to do analytics if you would like to do so. It's possible to look at the group analytics. The metrics are grouped for the entire list of authors. So it's possible to see the output and the impact of an entire group, a set of co-authors, collaborators. You can see the number of documents, you can see the group H index, the group total citations, the group number of co-authors, and the group number of references. Just additional information for you to consider, right, when you're working with a group of research authors. And this is a part, I think, Peter, I think this is the part where you might have faced some issues, because we do encourage you to reach out to us. And one thing that we definitely admit is that no machine-driven or process is entirely perfect. We recognize that. We recognize that within Elsevier and Scopus itself, it's not always 100% perfect. So one of the things that we have done to really work and improve on is to come up with a Scopus author profile wizard, right? Where you can actually edit your profile accordingly. So some of you may be facing issues when you're trying to edit your profile and you're pushed it over to us, and this is something that we can handle via support tickets. Sometimes I will also encourage you to, if you really want to do so, you can also access it via the profile wizard, right? Where you can set your preferred name, as what Nicole was talking about earlier in the session, about how you can tweak the different permutations of your names. You can set your preferred name. You can merge author profiles as well, should you find duplicate author profiles. you may want to add and remove documents. And sometimes you can also update your affiliations, right? Like what Siobhan showcased and highlighted earlier, when you move from one institution to the other, but your latest published work was from the previous institution, you may want to update the affiliation to showcase yourself and the recency better. So set your name preference, and then you can make changes for this accordingly, and it will be reflected. You can add additional documents as well. And if you find that there are documents missing, you can add on to it. If you find that someone has attributed a document wrongly to your author profile, you may want to remove it as well. And this is part of what we do give authors the flexibility to do so too. And then finally, you can review the affiliation, and then you can confirm and submit this ticket. And this is something that the author feedback profile wizard is looking to do. You can also go through the following, right? You can edit a profile via the author details page, via the author's search results page, or the author feedback wizard landing page. And if you have more information, we do have an FAQ for you to go to for more information. That's something that we actually really have. And I think it's common, right? Sometimes I would say, don't be surprised if you find errors, because there is one particular case in Germany where I spoke to my colleagues, and this is actually pretty excellent. What happens is that there are two researchers with the exact same name from the exact same faculty in the exact same institution working on the exact topic. I think their names was actually a very common name. It was a Christopher Smith or something. And when that happened, right, it was impossible for the system to disambiguate them. So what has happened is that we've had to work with the librarians, with the researchers themselves to curate those author profile cases. So these things actually do happen. Having common names happen, and going back to what Nicole shared earlier about ORCID ID, this is why having an ORCID ID is particularly useful. And this is something that we can definitely work on to make our systems clearer, better, and something that you can also work on to represent your own author profile better as well.
Nicholas, we've just got a question here. What is the limit on grouped analytics?
Oh, wow, that's actually a very good question. I don't have the answer to that, but let me look into that and I'll get back to you. I'm really sorry about that. I think there's a bunch of questions that are coming out as well.
Yeah, we're answering some of them as they come through. So I think we're up to date, I think, Nicholas. So if you want to continue.
Okay. Sure, I'll do just that. So another thing that we talk about, right, we did mention this a lot earlier by Siobhan when it came to topic pages. So we talk about the strengths of collaboration, and going through the topics page is actually a very good port to go in to basically understand your work better or to understand someone's work better, right? So going to topic pages here, we can find that the author profile of Prof. Harun, we can see that his most contributed topics were in saturable absorbers, in terms of humidity sensors, and in terms of whispering gallery modes. So if you're interested in this particular area of an author's research, you can jump into it, right? Some of you may be wondering, what are topics? And essentially topics are a collection of documents with a common focus intellectual interest, and Scopus publications are clustered into topics based upon a direct citation analysis. The reason why we actually have this particular module is that we found it was very useful, and we wanted to bring additional insights for people who are using Scopus to understand better itself. So through topics, right, you can learn more about topics that you may not have previously known, or you want to explore more in greater depth or detail. We are able to see the author documents here, as well as the topic field-weighted citation impact. And for those of you who were not around for the previous session, but we also have a recording, a field-weighted citation impact is a normalized metric citation where 1 is the global average. So if you want to find out about how prominent and this particular author's topic work in this particular topics are, you can look at the field-weighted citation and identify which are the ones that have huge number of documents, which are the ones where the FWCI is higher than 1. So in this case, in terms of saturable absorbers, Prof. Harun has about 241 documents with an FWCI of 11% higher than the global average. And this is something that you might be interested in, you might want to follow. Correspondingly, if this is your own author profile, having these areas of FWCI in terms of topics would also showcase your work better. People who are interested in a particular topic of research would also be able to approach you as well. And this really creates the opportunity for greater collaboration. Another thing that you can see within for collaboration will be to take a look at the number of co-authors of this particular author that you're looking at as well. So if you're not sure about this particular author you're looking at, but you're interested in some of the works, what you can do is to take a look at the co-authors. You can go to their Scopus author profiles and then to take a look at their work that they're publishing. I think this is a very open, very clear, very transparent, and very organic way for you to really expand your network. And I would highly encourage you to be able to do all of this because I think it just makes collaboration a lot easier. Another thing that you can leverage on author profiles to do so is to showcase your own career growth and your development. So what we really want to do through the author profiles is to help researchers to discover, to enhance, and to benefit from their own research profile, which is created with authoritative information and expert linking, and which is enhanced by metrics and research analysis. We also want to help researchers to identify potential collaborators and possibly mentors with their citation views, with the saved list, with the search alerts, and the author analysis. And maybe you can map the trajectories of few leaders to inform them of their own goals that they would like to pursue. We really want to encourage an understanding in terms of research usage and impact with an array of documents and author level metrics and indicators to showcase them on funding opportunities, collaboration opportunities, publication avenues, publication opportunities, career assessment, and career development strategies. And all this, right, would be a very useful and functional way for all of you as early career researchers, as mid-career researchers, to be able to leverage on the Scopus author profiles to support your own career growth and your development. So Nicole, I think this is back to you on how you can create an org ID.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Nicholas. I just want to cover off Siobhan actually found the answer for us. So it's a maximum of 50. So the original question was, what is the limit on group analytics? And it's a list of 50. So thank you, Siobhan. So anyone interested in that, just let us know and we can provide you with the link through to that information. But moving back to Awkward, spoke about it a little bit earlier, and Nicholas gave us a brilliant example of why this is actually important. And interestingly enough, Awkward is a not-for-profit organisation. It's not an Elsevier product. It's supported by a global community of organisations, including universities, publishers, funders, professional associations, and other stakeholders in research ecosystem. The persistent digital identifier acts like a DOI, so the digital object identifier, similar to what you get on one of your articles or publications. So, but it's for researchers that can use to link to all of their individual research outputs and feed them back to other research systems. So together, this community has turned Awkward into a tool that links many of the available author ID numbers under a single identifier and allows research data to be shared between systems. Because Awkward is a unique identifier for researchers, it helps distinguish your research activities and outputs for those of other researchers with similar names to ensure you get credit for your work. It aims to connect researchers with all their research outputs, including publication, grants, and data sets. Provide this along with your name that is a consistent name, convention, at time when you're publishing. So it's really you're in the driving seat of this to make sure that you've got your name convention correct, that you're providing your Awkward at time of publication to ensure that you're getting recognized for the work that you've put so much time and effort into as well. And so the Awkward IDs are available to any scholar who is interested. So they're free and it's randomly assigned. So unfortunately, you can't choose your numbers, but it's a 16-digit number that uniquely distinguishes a researcher from all others in the world. And you can actually see this. I can't remember if we actually provided it before, but it is under your name and it links back to Awkward in the Scopus platform as well. So you can use your ORCID ID as your online CV, list all of your work history and other professional and academic activities, which is what I was talking about before. That's why you would use the ORCID ID versus the Scopus author profile for those extra things that are not covered within the Scopus author profile. So most important reason to have a research profile is to reduce author ambiguity and provide greater visibility to your work in some instances, and also if required for government grants as well. So what's the benefit of having an ORCID ID? It connects with all of your research activity and outputs. It eliminates confusion, ensures your profile is consistent, even and with your institution as well. But as I said, it's really, you're in the driver's seat and you make sure that you update your own profile. It's really on yourself to do that. And it can save time managing information about publications and grants, allows you to automate during adding your publication to systems like Research Direct, and it gives you complete control over which systems can access your information. I'd just like to go to, so that's the website. I'm going to just ping that through as well on the chat to everybody. So for those that aren't familiar with ORCID, you can jump on, take a look. As you can see, it's a free to register. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I'd just like to point out a couple of key features here. So you can see up there on the right-hand side, the website and social links. You can add these. So if there's anything that's relevant to you and your research, add them in there. Under other IDs, you can link your Scopus ID via the Scopus platform. And the advantage of syncing your profiles with ORCIDs, when a publication becomes available in Scopus, it will automatically sync with your ORCID ID profile. So that's why it's really important to make sure that, during that sort of publishing period, you're providing the ORCID profile sort of straight up even before you get published. You can list your keywords there in your profile. So it could be advantageous if you list keywords, as it may trigger potential collaboration opportunities for people who may be viewing your profile. And, this particular librarian, she had 2 librarians from 2 separate libraries, one in the US, contact them to coordinate training with their role at Western Sydney University. And the second person asked them about training events that were offered. So, who knows what type of connections you can make just purely even just from keywords. And lastly, set to be visible. So, if anyone can give me an example why you would remain invisible, I'd love to hear it. But, the purpose of this is to make sure that you're sharing the fantastic work that you're doing, you're being profiled and getting recognised for everything that you're doing within the research community. And that is it. Any other questions on ORCID? Thank you, Nicholas. Over to you.
Sure thing. So none from the chat so far. I would say thanks a lot for participating in the session so far. We've gotten a very good list of questions in the Q&A, and I think this is the part where if you have more additional questions to ask Nicole, Servellen, and myself, please don't hesitate to do so. We want to have this as a very safe space where you can ask any queries, and I think some of you have put very good questions to us, and hopefully we've been able to tackle some of them. So feel free to keep the queries coming along. To further consolidate what we've shared with you, we have additional information that we would like to showcase. So first and foremost, for those of you who are interested in Scopus specifically, we do have quite a bit of information and support that we can share with you. So one of which would be the Scopus Support Hub. If you go to Google and type in Scopus Support Hub, it'll port you directly to our service center, where you can find many questions to some of the queries that you have put forward to ask. Feel free to leverage on that area. Sometimes I would say I go there pretty often as well to look for information. I think Servellen managed to put up the list of user alerts that we are able to identify from the Support Hub as well. So that's a very good port of call, I would say. We also have the Scopus Librarian Guide, as well as the Scopus blog that you can go to do so. And we recently just updated our Scopus certification program for librarians. So for those of you who are interested to find out more about Scopus and you'd like to enroll in the program, do feel free to approach us, and then we probably can get you to be enrolled in the system itself.
And can I just say, here in ANZ, we actually run a separate Scopus certification. So if anyone's interested, to contact me directly if you're from ANZ.
Thanks a lot, Nicole. Sorry about that. So we also have a Library Connect Academy. So we do have a whole host of information pertaining to Scopus that you can access as well. And if you have any queries, feel free to reach out to any one of us here, right? We're all here to support and to help you accordingly. We have a whole list of webinars, and I think we have actually covered approximately 5 of them. And for the last one, that will be on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that have been updated to 2023. We look forward to seeing you on the 7th November accordingly in that case as well, should you like to see it. To round things off for today's session, I've always talk about the Elsevier Journal Finder. Sometimes some of you may be interested to find out what journals are a good port of call. So what you can do is you can go to journalfinder.elsevier.com. We use what we call an Elsevier fingerprint engine. So all you have to do is put in your abstract and your keywords to find the journals, and then we'll give you a list of Elsevier journals that you may be interested to publish into. Another tool that we have for free would be the Elsevier Researcher Academy. So if you go to researcheracademy.com, this is an online platform that takes you through the different phases in terms of the research cycle, right? We want to help PhDs and postdocs within the career, either within or outside of academia itself. We would like to help researchers to showcase how they can get funding for their research, to showcase and to help them on what they can do to allow their work to be accepted in top journals. And this is completely free. You'll be able to find information pertaining to research preparation, writing for research, publication process, navigating the peer review process, and how they can communicate your research accordingly. So this is a free online learning module as well. So towards the end, thank you so much. I would say that you can either scan the QR code or the survey link that we'll share accordingly. We really would like you to know your feedback on how you felt we did today's session and webinar. So please be kind, do rate and let us know what you felt about our session. And we definitely hope you enjoyed this session, and we would like to see you the next time as well.
Lastly, I just want to add, I've pasted into the chat there just a 2-pager on author profiles. So if you need something just to stick next to your wall, it's just a quick guide on a couple of the few things that we went through today.
It's a great summary, I will say. Everybody should have a look at that one. Very useful. We've got a couple more questions that have come through, so maybe we start to go through those now. I might actually just quickly call out or ask for what would be the best way for this audience to get access to historical recordings that we've had throughout this series, because a couple of questions have come through specific to some of the analytics that Scopus has, and I think it would be really good for those of you that are interested in research analytics from Scopus to have a watch of our most recent Scopus webinar series that we did. So what would be the best way to get access to that one, Nick?
I think this one I would have to speak to Sandra. So many of you who joined this workshop may probably be familiar with my colleague, Sandra Van Servellen. So what I have to do is I'll probably reach out to him and I'll ask him to collate, because he's the one who organized this entire thing and he's the administrative tools. So I'll reach out to Sandra and I'll ask him if I could collate a whole series of all these webinars, and then we'll share it out accordingly. So Siobhan and Nicole, I'll work on this and I'll get back to you on this.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
No worries.
Okay, well, we have 4 questions, or 3 questions rather, that have come through on the chat. So I will read those out. The first one, perhaps for you, Nicole, may I put my newspaper article on ORCID?
And that is a great question. Nick, do you know off the top of your head? I'm actually jumping onto the ORCID support. That is not one I've had before. So that's probably the best place. As I said, this is not an Elsevier tool. It is a not-for-profit tool, so best to probably ask them directly. And same with the ORCID ID is generated with university email address. Well, may I change the email address? Another really great question. I suggest just reaching out to their support page if you need to update. I personally don't know what happens on that side of things, as it's not Elsevier.
My understanding as well that for anything that is an NTRO, quotes, a non-traditional research output, it would still have to have some kind of identifier on the document in order for ORCID to capture it. But yeah, Nicole is absolutely right. I think that's one to reach out to ORCID to get a bit more understanding for. Okay, we have another question. My ORCID ID is generated with university email address. Oh, that one's just answered. Thank you, Nicole. Okay, here's a two-hitter for you. Question 1, in what ways do international and local collaborations foster diversity of thought and perspectives within academia?
I think I'll start with that one first to tackle it. I think it's very interesting. And I think that in this day and age, right, where borders are less bothersome, it's actually easier for people to read information, to learn from one another. And I think that's one of the great beauty in the current day of knowledge, because we're able to share information and thought leadership very seamlessly, and we're able to access information seamlessly as well. And I think like being able to read information, like for instance, this opportunity to work together with Nicole and Siobhan for this whole series of webinars has been very exciting and educational for myself as well, right? Because it's one thing to have a Southeast Asia level perspective, but it's also very encouraging to see the questions that are coming through some of you from Australia and New Zealand as well. And I think, for instance, this gives me a different perspective as to how there's no real single point of truth, right? There's multiple facets within a truth. And I think this is something that for me is very encouraging to see, right? And I think this also applies to the world of research, because you have one particular way of doing things, but when you realize and you reach out to other countries within Singapore, ANZ, the world, you probably find out there's different perspectives and ways that they work as well, right? So you have a much more nuanced approach. You're able to see things from a different perspective and angle. And I think this actually really helps a lot, right? And this really encourages the diversity of thought and perspectives. And I think being able to appreciate all this really goes a long way. So I think that working on this through Scopus, by working together with local collaborators, international collaborators, I think this would really help you to actually create a richer variety within your research. But that's just my perspective.
I agree with you a lot, Nick. I think, I mean, research in and of its entire ethos is about collaboration towards the pursuit of new knowledge. And so being able to include such a variety of different thought processes and cultural perspectives is a really important path towards kind of pushing along a new area of research. Maybe one thing that I'll just kind of add to that as well is that, you know, so much of research is also requiring certain capability mapping to try and find a certain collaborator, not just that has the knowledge that can be useful towards the question that you're trying to identify within research, but also some of the resources. You know, great research collaboration and partnership can come off of the back of, you know, you need a certain resource that your institution might not have and this other institution has it. And so being able to kind of map to that as well allows a stronger research community to kind of come off of the back of it. So really interesting question. Do you have anything to add, Nicole?
Couldn't agree more. But and every instance will be different, but that, you know, don't pinhole your knowledge, so to speak, so and utilize everything that's available to you locally or internationally.
Absolutely. Well, second part of that one, how does international and local collaboration impact the career development and opportunities for students and researchers in academia? Really, really good perspectives, I think, from this asker. So thank you so much for participating with these questions. I think, I mean, you know, furthering, again, that idea of furthering research, sharing knowledge is really critical. And so having an early career researcher embedding those values into their own research practice is a really strong way, ultimately, of ensuring that they are at the forefront of cutting edge researchers, you know, not just kind of in their own siloed bubble of what they know and what their community knows, but actually expanding beyond that to engage with other people's level of expertise. So having that as a value for an early career researcher is a really strong way to support them, nurture them, and help them kind of get that level of interaction that we see in really prominent researchers. You know, I think when we kind of think as well of like opportunities that can come off of the back of career development in this way, you know, a researcher who has a collaborative interaction with another country has just for their institution kind of created a partnership opportunity. And so their institution now can use that collaboration as a way to build more collaboration and stronger partnership opportunities. So it's kind of endless what a focus on collaborative research can do for a researcher's career. And so if you're someone that does work with early career researchers, I really strongly recommend encouraging them towards that kind of pathway. And while, for their own Scopus author profile, since they're a bit younger, they might not yet see those kind of metrics being populated in a way that is really meaningful just yet, because of course it's based off of, a track record. You can push them and help them understand this in creating their own collaborative efforts. So leaning into, potential partners who have very strong international collaboration, they can look at that as, oh, they might be interested in working with me as well. My thoughts, at least.
Absolutely. And having that, it's exactly having that proactive approach as well, too, I think, rather than a reactive. So don't wait for someone to come and collaborate with you. Be at the forefront of it.
I can't agree any more with you, the two of you. I think when it comes to collaboration opportunities, it's really, you have the impetus and the grasp to be proactive, right? So take these opportunities, reach out. I think not just only through Scopus author profiles, there are also many other avenues as well. Go for conferences, right? I think conferences are great opportunities for you to meet new people, for yourself to be seen as well. So go for, definitely leverage on all these opportunities that you have made available for you. Reach out, connect with different people, and you never know, right? Because in this day and age, it's very easy to move from one place to another. I know many of my peers have moved from different institutions to institutions, and they're able to grow themselves both professionally as well and through academically speaking too. So don't just simply stop there. Feel free to leverage on multiple collaboration opportunities to really take this opportunity to grow and develop. I think that's something which you can definitely control.
Absolutely. And can I be a bit more old school and say, pick up the phone or jump on a video call and actually introduce yourselves live too? There's nothing better, we love human interaction. And I think, COVID sort of put us at a different end where we don't have as many conferences or anything like that. But, just actually having that interaction, even via video, goes worlds in advance, rather than just sending an email and think, oh, I haven't heard from that person, or they're not collaborating with me. Doesn't hurt to set up meetings.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I think in the chat itself, quite a number of people have been asking for certificates. So we have not set up the certificates for this particular session, but seeing that there's been quite a demand for it, allow me to get back to you and I can tweak the settings accordingly. And we'll send out the slides, the recording, as well as the certificate codes to you sometime tomorrow. So just be patient for a bit. We'll send them over to you shortly.
Nicholas, is there somewhere people can get the previous sessions as well? That's been one of the continued questions too. So, because this is session 5, where are the other 4?
Yeah, so the other 4 will try. I think what will happen is that we'll consolidate the other 4. Well, we consolidate all 6 sessions and then we'll send it out in one batch. So don't worry. So feel free to come in for the next session and then we'll send out all 6 to you in one go. Yeah, but we'll arrange for that. So not to worry. I will speak to Sander too.
Awesome. And our next session is in 2 weeks, roughly, and it's going to be on the SDGs within Scopus and how we can kind of make the most of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes. And I do just want to set context there. I know in Australia specifically, we have a thing called Melbourne Cup on that day. So it will be recorded and we will be sharing it. So if you're not able to make it, like myself, unfortunately, I'll be attending the race. We will be providing. So I just want to give a big thank you to Nicholas for involving Siobhan and I. We're very appreciative. And as we said, love collaborating with, people from other territories. So I think it's a great learning experience and really appreciate it.
No, it's a great learning experience for me. And thank you so much for taking your time to join me for this session. I think hopefully your community will like it. I definitely found it enjoyable and I learned a lot from the two of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
As always. Well, everybody enjoy your day so much, and we hope to see you on our next session.
Take care.
Take care, stay safe. See you all. Bye.
Bye.